to see that already 168 people are online and watching our stream. So hey, Ellie in space here, and I'm joined by Zack Golden. You may know him as Golden Boy, and you may know his channel, CSI Starbase.
Yes, thanks for having me, Ellie. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a few names. People go by Stage Zero Zack in my YouTube channel. On YouTube, a lot of people do know me as Golden Boy. That was my original, well, I guess it's still my original YouTube name before I started my channel. But yeah, CSI Starbase. It's really excited to be here. Like, we've been trying to do this for a while, so. Yeah. We did a little short one at the launch site the other day, but it was pretty windy, so we decided to do this again today, which is nice.
And we did one like StreamYard stream, but it's just not the same as being in person.
Very true, especially being here. We're at Rocket Ranch right now.
We're at Rocket Ranch, shout out to Rocket Ranch, and you're staying here, right?
I am, yeah. We just doxed me, but it's okay. No, it's all good. There's tons of people down here.
They know you're here.
Yeah, I was staying down here this weekend, or this whole week actually, until they send this thing off. So whenever that is.
Whenever that is.
Hopefully it's tomorrow, allegedly, if we have, the weather gods with us or whatever.
Yeah. What is your sense? Do you think we'll actually see it on the meme-worthy 420?
Hopefully. I mean, from what I haven't actually been out there today, but from what I've heard, they've gotten a lot of the scaffolding and whatnot cleared up. So it seems like they're actually like getting close now. And I don't know, I'm not sure what the, excuse me, the full situation with the tank farm is yet, but I'm assuming they're getting close to being full on that as well too. So I don't know. I mean, I think the only real thing like holding them back is themselves at this point. So, I mean, we do have the weather factor as well tomorrow to deal with. Like, if it was like it is right now, we're not going to have much visibility. So,
but even then, do you think they'd still go?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's tough to say because they have a lot of different tracking assets that they're using as far as like, I don't even know if we're supposed to speak about them, but in between Raptor Roost and the outpost, they have SpaceX has a few tracking cameras out there. I think they're going to be analyzing the exhaust plume or something like that. So I would assume they need a clear view, but I don't know, with a expensive camera like that, maybe they can punch straight through the clouds with that kind of analysis. But I assume they want a clear view in order to be able to actually, measure whatever it is they're trying to measure. But, I think that one way or another, like even if we can't see it, it'll still be like an awesome experience. And I don't know, I do feel like tomorrow's the day, but
We hope tomorrow's the day.
I know, right?
I've been down here since Easter. Someone asked earlier in the chat, are you guys bored? And I'm not bored. I just, at some point, I have cats at home and physical therapy and post-op appointments with my orthopedic surgeon that I need to get to. So not bored, but definitely, let's not drag this on too much.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to get bored. I'm like more tired than anything because it's been like nonstop, the entire time down here. I initially planned on, trying to shoot some content while I was down here, but the environment is not necessarily very conducive for me to do that. It's very good for you. Well, if I was wanting to go around and interview people, it would be perfect, you know what I mean? But there are a few things that I would like to cover while I'm down here. And so far, my experience has been that if I pull out a camera, I'm not going to be able to like press record for too long because I'm going to end up talking to somebody.
Yes.
So,
same here. Which is great. I mean, it's been.
Oh yeah, it's amazing for sure.
It's really cool to not only meet fans and subscribers from around the world, but also meet other people in the space YouTube scene that we all see online, and it's like, wow, we're all in the same place, minus Scott Manley and Marcus House. So yeah,
I think I'm surprised Scott Manley's not here. I'm not surprised Marcus isn't here because Marcus is afraid of planes.
What?
Yeah, he's terrified of planes. That's why he won't fly here.
No.
I'm starting this rumor. I've been spreading this rumor all week.
Okay, I was like, he just told me it's like a long journey from Tasmania, and he wants to like wait until it's not how it is now,
Well,
which is a little unpredictable.
I figured I could bully him into coming out if I had everybody convinced that he's afraid of being on an airplane. So I'm just rolling with it.
That's awesome. Oh,
So
wow.
if you guys go comment on Marcus's next video, ask him why he's afraid to fly on planes.
I love that.
And then maybe he'll make it out for the next launch.
Oh my gosh. And thank you to Bimmer Geezer for the super chat. Another wonderful interview with Ellie. And I'm so glad to have you on the channel because you do awesome work on your channel.
Thank you.
Very thorough, very detailed. And so, you know, your hat, CSI Starbase, where did you get your inspiration for this name and kind of what your channel's about?
Wow. That's a deep story. So, you know, part of it kind of started with, you know, just figuring out like what it is we're doing, right? Like, so, you know, when I was coming up with the name, you know, part of it was like, well, you know, if we feel like I guess CIA would have been like the better acronym for us to use because that's kind of what we're doing. I mean, as far as like really with analyzing like aerial images more than anything, it really feels like CIA type stuff. But I don't know, I liked the CSI type thing because then I was able to have agents. You know, I already had like a Discord server with a bunch of great people that, you know, help me out on a lot of the stuff that I do. So, you know, I don't like to, I try not to like claim knowledge as my own if it's not for me. So, you know, by having an agency, I was able to, you know, pawn off knowledge on my agents, especially if it's wrong. You know, I want them to take the fall for that. Just kidding. But you know, that was a big thing for me is like, you know, making people aware of the fact that it's like a team effort and it's not all me. You know, I do write all of my own scripts, but you know, a lot of the research stuff, like, you know, I have a very large, surprisingly large team. It's kind of blows my mind. It's just weird how everything kind of fell into place over the last like 2 years. But
your Discord is nuts.
Yeah, it's a madhouse for sure.
Very crowded. I want to make sure I get these super chats too.
But I guess
I love the Pluto shirt, by the way. Sorry.
Thank you
for the super chat. And it's funny, I noticed that. Never forget, 1930 to 2006. So that's awesome. We love that. And there was one other super chat. Thank you, Space Beetle, two of my favorite creators in the space scene. Thank you for this interview. Yeah, I think, you know, you're obviously very knowledgeable. And so maybe remind people of some of your background and why you are able to look at this stuff in a way that I, for example, can't yet.
Well, I just realized I didn't fully answer your question for the CSI, because a lot of people ask, like, where's the crime? And you know, it's kind of a running joke. One of the folks in my server, her name's T-Liv, you know, when somebody got upset about, oh, well, where's the crime at? And, you know, she jumped on there. She's like, well, SpaceX is literally killing every other launch provider on the planet. And I was like, that is it right there. So murder is actually a crime, at least where I'm from. And so hence the investigation. We're trying to explain to people what's going on here, how SpaceX is literally outperforming pretty much every other launch provider on the planet. And that's kind of like where that inspiration comes from. And it really is a play on words in a way. Like, I try and stick to character a lot. Like, you know, even you know, Tori Bruno released that video of the explosion at their test facility the other day, and I was like, yeah, if you need a third-party agency to come out there and do some investigation for you, let me know, you know, and I like try to stay in character, but then, you know, saying stuff like that, you're welcoming a lot of online hate, because people are like, who are you?
Oh,
you know,
well,
but
that's just the internet.
I refuse to break character. But sorry, your other question, repeat your question again.
What is your background?
Okay. Well, I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to school at CU Boulder, so I studied mechanical engineering and computer science up there. I graduated and started working for a mechanical company. I was doing design work for a lighting company. It was like architectural lighting, super boring. I realized that, you know, doing computer-aided design wasn't really my thing. Well, it is, but not in a corporate environment, because, you know, you're not at work doing stuff like Ryan Hansen Space is doing, where you get to design the entire vehicle, or, you know, you're designing potentially like a door hinge or something like that. And so, like, you know, one object, and your entire 2 years could be that one object. Like, if you're designing grid fins, that's the only thing you care about is grid fins for like a year. You know what I mean? So I'm like too much of a big picture type person to work in that environment, so I didn't last long there. So after that, I went and worked for, worked in construction management for about 2 years. So I did structural steel and mechanical, so HVAC and plumbing and all that stuff. From the project management standpoint, and then also like, being out in the field with people, actually like learning how that stuff works, which kind of helps with the way that I analyze things now, as far as like understanding the logistics of how all that stuff works. And then from there, I actually went and worked in the oil and gas industry for about 4 years as a field engineer. And that was probably like one of the greatest 4 years, I would say. It was super hard. It felt like it's very comparable to probably what a lot of the employees at SpaceX go through, except I would say they probably have it a little bit worse because, from my understanding, I think they work 6 days straight and they have like a day off, versus what I was doing was working 14 days straight, 12-hour days, and then we had 7 days off. So when I worked in Denver, we had 14 and 7, and then in Texas, we were 14 and 14. So that was a little bit better, working 2 weeks straight, being off for 2 weeks. But my job there was to sit inside of a mobile operations center and analyze all of the, holy crap, that's a big spider. All right. It's actually not as big as I thought it was, and I don't know if you guys can even see it. We're gonna make, you guys in the audience, make sure it doesn't jump on the back of Ellie's head because we're not gonna relocate.
Oh no, it's moving. It's better than the spider that was in the porta potty the other day.
Oh, yikes.
Never mind.
That's actually a funny thing because, that was one of the reasons I left the oil and gas industry. This is a funny story, and I hope some of them see this because it's hilarious. But, I started, so I actually got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. Like the oil and gas industry really just like was the first one to fall off at the beginning of the pandemic. And that's actually when I really got into SpaceX, because I was like sitting at home. I had like a pretty large severance check from my job, and so I was taking classes and I was working from home, take classes from home while watching, Lab Padre streams on one of the screens. And when I came back, I was probably unemployed for probably about 9 months, and I knew they were going to hire me back. I actually was applying for SpaceX at the time, though. I was like, well, I'll probably apply for SpaceX since, as I was like looking at job descriptions, everything like matched up so perfectly. I was like,
I did apply for SpaceX. I
wrote.
know that.
I never applied. I wrote 10 cover letters. I had like all of my applications filled out. I never submitted them because my previous employer called me back, so I went back there. But they were like, well, you got to work in Texas if you're coming back instead of Denver. And I was like, all right, cool. So I started there in the winter. It was great because it wasn't that hot. And one of the things that they would tell me, they were like, yeah, man, as soon as summer starts, you really got to watch out because there'll be black widows and salamanders and all that stuff, and the porta potty snakes. They like to hide in there. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be here in the summer, guys. And so it was one of the big motivators when I left there. I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to be here during the summer because I'm not going to deal with all that stuff. I'm not a fan of all of that.
No.
Yeah. I mean, but don't get me wrong. I love that industry. I learned so much, like literally sitting in front of a computer, like monitoring data. I don't know if you've ever seen like, what's that movie called? Wow.
On the spot.
Yeah, the one where Mark Wahlberg was in it, and wow, what is it called? It's Deepwater Horizon.
No, haven't seen it.
Terrifying. If you ever work in the oil and gas industry and watch that movie, it's absolutely terrifying. But it was basically like when the oil rig exploded, and they like showed like everything that led up to that moment. But part of my job was to like just monitor data and make sure that we're not going to like kill ourselves. So, I always truly like view everything from that like point of view because, while most of our days were like pretty straightforward and, kind of relaxed, we were joking on the radio all the time, like things could go wrong in a fraction of a second all the time. And all of a sudden you have like 4-inch pipe rupturing and water spraying all over the place. Like we've had, massive equipment fires. We lost entire fleets from fires. You know, I was around like people getting injured on location occasionally, like every now and then. And it really, over time, I was like, you know what? I feel like it's like a ticking time bomb here, where it's like one of these days, you know, if you do this job long enough, you will be a part of something that you'll truly never forget. So.
Well, and I'm curious now, because you are full-time right now on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Join the club.
Yeah,
But
it's
are you still wanting to work for SpaceX someday, or are you more fulfilled doing what you're doing?
No. I don't think I could work for SpaceX at this point. I feel like that ship has sailed. I don't think, like, I'm a walking NDA violation.
I like that.
Like, I can sign an NDA and I can abide by it, but I've already broken it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the problem. You know, I've thought about like doing, like if I ever got the opportunity to even just do a tour through there, I was like gonna voluntarily like blindfold myself, because, you know, I truly have like photographic memory when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So, you know, even without a camera, I'd be able to like go back and then find the things that I need in order to explain certain things that I saw there. So they're probably never gonna give me a tour for that reason.
How about this? If you got a tour, what would you want to uncover with your investigation here the most? Or what are you most wanting to see inside of there, if you could?
Definitely the launch mount. Yeah, I thought I wanted to go to the top of the tower, but then I saw that counterweight fall off the other day, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good. So I would like to either stand underneath the launch mount or actually walk inside of it, which is never going to happen. I mean, they might as well let me walk inside of it, because I've seen most of it. You know, there's a few things behind some of the doors that I don't know what's in there. I have a good idea of what's in there, but you know, I would love to just even maybe walk on top of that structure and just look down into the, you know, the hold down clamps or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Just, you know, for me, like even just being able to get as close as we can get through the wetlands is nice enough. I don't know if I need the tour. I would love it, but you know, I feel like just being here, you get a lot of access in general.
Well, I mean, it was pretty cool the other day that you got to ask some of your questions to Elon on that Twitter space. We both actually, only 5 of us got to ask questions, and that was...
Oh, there's only 5 questions? I showed up late.
Well, there were only 5 people, and so Chris Bergen with NASA Spaceflight was first, and then he called on me, which was pretty surreal, and then I think you were the last one to speak.
Well, I showed up late.
Yeah, but you still got in.
Yeah, that's one of the things, like, you know, one of the things I was talking about before, as far as like trying to be out here making content. Like, I walk out to my car, and then you get stopped and talk to somebody, and all of a sudden a half hour's flown by. So, you know, I knew, I was talking to Felix actually, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna go inside, charge my stuff up, get on this Twitter space. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I left my phone charger in my car, so I came out to my car, and then I, you know, ended up talking to somebody, half hour goes by, and I'm like, oh man, it's 6:30. So I hop in, and I messaged Chris. I was like, hey, any chance like I may be able to like ask a question? And he was like, yeah, just like take the last question, like just interrupt and ask a question. And so, you know, I was already like relatively prepared for that, because I've had a lot of questions that I wanted to ask Elon for a long time. So you know, I asked them, you know, what their biggest challenge, not the biggest challenge, in particular with stage 0, like if you you know, take the huge list of things that you've had to go through in order to get stage 0 ready for launch day, what would you say was like the biggest thing that was either unexpected or just the biggest setback overall, biggest challenge that you guys had to deal with? I kind of knew what he was going to say. I was hoping he was going to say something different, but
yeah, were you satisfied with his response?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not every day you get to even have that chance to even ask a question like that, so you really can't have any complaints. But it was actually nice to hear some confirmation on just how they feel about their tank farm situation, which is what his answer was. That he said we shouldn't have built our own tank farm, and I was like, yeah, I feel that heavy. And sorry if you guys felt that, Mike. I feel that very heavily, because I got sad when I saw all the stuff that they were doing. Like every time new, that's when I really like got obsessed when I was with the tank farm stuff because I don't think a lot of people truly understood what was happening. And I knew it was wrong. Like, you know, coming out of the oil and gas industry, my mind was blown. I was like, how are they storing this stuff that close together? Like, is this legal? And sure enough, it wasn't. Like, I knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I like, you know, privately through my Discord server, we would talk about that stuff all the time. I wasn't really on Twitter back then. That was one of the things that drew me to Twitter, was explaining to people like what actually went down here.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I guess it was no surprise that that was their biggest challenge, because truthfully, that was one of the most major delays. You know, I mean, even looking at the launch mount now, and you see like, oh yeah, all the shielding that they put on it, and it's just happening now. Like, I feel like all of that stuff would have happened like a year ago, had they not had the tank farm issues. So like, I think that they got close to finishing it, and then it was like starting all over again with the second half of it for the methane stuff. Like, that was intense amount of work that they had to do. And honestly, a shout out to that team for pulling that off. I was hoping I would meet some Stage Zero people out here just so I can like shake their hands, because that was impressive the way they did all that stuff. And to do it while they were still testing was the crazy part as well too. So.
Well, I do want to just, you know, go back to that Twitter space. Were you as nervous as I was actually, you know, unmuting your mic and talking to Elon, or you didn't sound nervous?
I was more concerned than anything. I pay a lot of attention to like people's emotions and stuff like that, like when I'm talking to them. So I'm really good at like reading the room and like feeling the vibe. And so I was just thinking, I was like, why does Elon sound so sad and tired right now? Like, that was my main thing that I was like trying to figure out, and I wasn't really like having time to be nervous. I was like more just wondering what was going on with him. Yeah, I mean, I think I would say I was more excited than anything. You know, like as soon as he responds, you just want to keep going and ask more questions. So.
Well, he gave some pretty long responses.
Yeah, I mean, he. I feel like kind of blessed in that way, where, you know, Elon does respond to like a lot of people on Twitter, and you know, for some reason, every time he responds, he ends up like telling me things that I didn't ask, which is cool. Like a lot of times he'll like briefly answer my question, and then the whole other 3/4 of the tweet is things that I didn't even ask him, and I'm like, oh wow, like that's pretty crazy. And it blows my mind, because it's like, oh, I think maybe he might actually be watching this content, because he's like responding to things that I said in the video. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting. And you know, I guess by asking my question, I kind of also wanted to gauge whether or not he like truly ever watched my channel. And to me, his response kind of told me that he does, because like he knows what I was getting at when I didn't say it the best way, I feel like, but he knew exactly what I wanted to hear. So yeah, he's a pretty intense guy for sure. And I feel like when you talk to him, you almost have to get on his like same level that he's at mentally at that point. You know what I mean? Like if he's energetic, you got to be energetic with him. If he's, you know, low energy, you got to be low energy with him. You know what I mean? So it was definitely an interesting experience, to say the least.
It was very cool that we both kind of got to share that.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
Really, and cool that there's that opportunity on this like subscription platform on Twitter. So
I love it, and you know, for me, it's not necessarily about like revenue or anything like that, but for me, it's like it gives me the ability to like notice who is a subscriber, and then prioritize those responses. It's not like, you know, I don't want to respond to everybody, but you know, especially lately on Twitter, there's just like so many responses, replies, and questions that people ask, and you know, tons of DMs, and so like for me, like when I see subscribers, I'm immediately going to respond, and then like I wish I could bring like port patrons over to Twitter, so I know when it's patrons reaching out to me on Twitter, so I could prioritize those, because I feel bad if I like don't notice that that's who they are, because I'm not physically able to respond all the time. Like have way less free time than a lot of people assume. I think I get a lot of DMs where
Yeah.
like people want to know like really in-depth specifics on things, and I'm like, well, I'm working on an episode about it. And they're like, okay, yeah, but just tell me right now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Well, let's make sure we get some of the comments here or questions, because I feel bad I haven't been able to look at any of the questions. Wow, 777 people.
Wow.
Very cool. We are so thankful that you guys are.
I wonder how many of them are down here. We should. We were going to do a meet and greet
Tonight.
I'm not sure if we'll be able to, given the.
Thank you, ChemStatic, by the way, for the super chat. You guys are so great. We appreciate that. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, tomorrow launch window from 8:28 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Very short window.
Yeah, it's pretty
What do you think that is?
impressive. I mean, I'm surprised it's a short window because they're not trying to like hit any specific orbit. You know, it's just like they're just launching to point on Earth. You know what I mean? Essentially. So I'm surprised it's not a window that expands through the whole day. But I think it's just, you know, they know that the path's going to be clear. They've done enough rehearsals at this point that everything should be like timed like down to the minute, essentially. I was actually really happy that they released that chart showing the timing for everything,
Yeah.
because like we've been building our own for ages, and it's cool to like actually see like how well it lines up with what theirs showing. But yeah, as far as that short window goes, I mean, it's better than a long window. You know, like you just know that it's either going to happen this time or it's not, and you're not sitting there waiting around all day. Like Falcon Heavy, when I saw the first Falcon Heavy launch, that was brutal because the window was so long and they kept extending it, and we were like, it's just not going to happen. And then finally they're like, just send it, and they did it like right at the edge of the window. That was actually the reason I'm pretty sure that it didn't make it to where it was supposed to go, because they launched outside the window. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what went down. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy that they know like exactly what time they'll be ready at for stuff
Yeah.
like that, especially given the tank farm requirements and stuff that need to be handled beforehand. So, yeah, I mean, I right now it looks like we're good to go for tomorrow.
I was
But
gonna say, like, since you know the issue on Monday, do you feel pretty confident that that is completely resolved? And you know, what have you learned from Monday morning until now, other than hopefully getting some rest?
well, the valve issue that they mentioned was interesting to me because they do so much practice. Like, I don't think any other launch provider really does the amount of testing that SpaceX does. Like, yes, everybody does static fires and structural verification testing, but the amount of static fire testing, you know, nobody's doing. People don't have, most launch providers don't have enough engines on their vehicle in order to make it necessary to do the type of testing that SpaceX does. Like, you're not going to fire just a few engines at a time. You're just going to do all of them because that's just what makes sense. But, you know, for them to like have to build up to 33 engines, all the spin prime testing, cryo testing, it's just a massive amount of testing. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and obviously we don't really see what happens on the inside, but they've never scrubbed anything when it comes to launch pad testing. The suborbital pad testing, yeah, they've had tons of, you know, scrubs when they were doing the suborbital flights. But like as far as static fires on the launch mount, we've never seen any. So I feel like all of that stuff has been going super smooth. So I'm actually surprised that that issue occurred. And I don't think we know yet whether or not I think it's an issue on the actual vehicle because they've been working on the hydraulic power unit and the booster QD over the last 2 days. So
Right.
it seems like that's where the issue was, and they may have it resolved. When I saw the hydraulic power unit, that one was a bit concerning because as far as I know, they don't have any more of those. So they, like that's one of the big things they're trying to get away from is using hydraulics for their thrust vector control. So that's why they retired Booster 8. They actually took the hydraulic power units off of Booster 8 and put them on 7. So if the ones on 7 fail, they don't really, as far as I know, have any additional ones. Because if they did, they probably wouldn't have had to pull it off of Booster 8. So when I saw them working on that, I was like, oh man, that's kind of concerning because if they lose one, I feel like that could be game over for Booster 7. Hopefully they have another one. But like I said, I was concerned when I saw that. But as far as I heard, they've kind of taken down the scaffolding. I haven't actually checked yet today, but.
Well, I know that Joe Tegmeyer, who's here with me too, had some questions for you. I'm going to ask, can one of you guys go grab Joe? Awesome. All right. We have some people in the background, which is awesome. And it looks like we have a few more. There's so many comments. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to interview Zach. Yeah,
we can scroll through some questions.
Lean in and see if we can get, okay, so Steven, thank you for the super chat. He says, so wish I could have been there. Oh man, I'm losing the comment. Trying to read the comments. Money for your recovery fund, Ellie, thank you, and help pay medical expenses. Hard to believe that 6 weeks ago I broke my femur. It is not too arduous getting around. It's actually I've been making improvements every day. So thank you for checking in on that, and thank you for the super chat. Win handstand. Probably,
oh, wow.
I actually probably could do one now.
I think they're talking about me because I did a handstand on Lab Padre one time and I fell into the sand dunes. Yeah. Who said that?
Joe, can we switch places? Because I want you to be able to ask your questions.
Oh, okay.
You cool with that, or do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
What am I asking?
You're asking the questions that you had for Zach.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the mic. We're gonna switch places for a second. Go ahead and ask your questions.
Hey everybody, how are you guys doing?
Thrown into it.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, I just finished doing a flight over here at Rocket Ranch to try to give you guys a view of what's going on. And one of the cool things is a boat has got the painting for the drone ships, just like you see Falcon 9's land. So I took off and landed the drone right on that, so it should be cool.
That'd be awesome to get that view. Yeah, I saw it down there, but I didn't get a chance to go check it out yet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty cool. The winds are a little bit strong today, but you got to deal with it.
Seems nice in here, though. That's a good.
Yes, exactly. So I guess what we were talking about earlier is, I guess first question is, you had mentioned that you noticed something about the plumbing necessary to do the starts of the engines that's very unique and maybe ad hoc right now. So what were your thoughts on that?
Oh man. This is a tough one. I was debating whether or not I was going to talk about this publicly,
I'm
but
sorry.
Here we go.
Spoiler.
Well, yeah. So I mean, during the actual launch countdown sequence, they showed the upskirt view of the booster, and you could see all of the hoses connected to the engine. So they have the 20 quick disconnects that are on the inside of the table that connect to the engines, but then there's non-quick disconnects. They're manual disconnects that have to actually be. I'm sure they're probably. I guess they are still quick disconnects because that's what you would call it, similar to the ones they use in compression fittings for pneumatics or whatever, you know what I mean? But usually you have to actually grab those and pull the collar down to release them.
Right.
So I've never seen any other than at the gas station where when you drive away it pulls off. And I don't think that's what those are because we've looked at them pretty closely. So as far as I'm concerned, there's 33 tethers.
Right.
Directly tying the booster skirt down to the launch mount. And so, in my opinion, it's well, what releases first? Do they break free or the skirt's probably got to be pretty heavy duty, so I'm assuming the hoses will break free first. But, that was a big thing I noticed was that they're still using those, which I thought for sure when they were launching that wouldn't be there because that just means, like I said, they either, something's getting damaged, that is a hit on your rapid reusability because that's you'll have to go reinstall that manifold and then reinstall the pipes every time. And that's not easy to do because they're tucked in underneath the launch mount. So I would be surprised if that was something that they would have to redo every time they launch. Right. And therefore, I'm surprised that they're using it because it's something that appears to be for testing purposes only, to remove the Raptor chill oxygen venting somewhere else so that it's not underneath the table.
Now, so you think this is just unique to Booster 7 because it's an older design, they've been trying to figure out how the whole orbital launch mount works with it, and this is just get it over with and then we'll move on to the better design?
Yeah, my question and the thing that I'm going to be looking for, and I guess a lot of people will be now looking for tomorrow, is whether or not those things are still connected tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I guess I hope they are, because if they're not, it's going to become clear that they never had an intention of launching on Monday.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I'll be sad if that ends up being true. I don't want to be proven right on that one. But yeah, I mean, and it's not necessarily a huge issue, but it's like, if you know, if it's not your intention, then just let people know. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to like say anything bad, but it's just that with so many people being down here, it's like one of those things where I think people would appreciate to just know what's actually going on. But as far as what we've seen with the work that they've been doing after the wet dress rehearsal, it does seem like there truly was a vehicle issue. So hopefully those things will still be connected.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Well, speaking of the wet dress rehearsal that came to be, there's a lot of people talking about the number of trucks that are coming in to bring the commodities. Does it surprise you how much they lost during the filling up initially, and then the defueling, and what they need with the number of trucks?
No. So one of the big things, like your liquid nitrogen is, I would say, the hot commodity, because they use so much of it. Like they're using liquid nitrogen to subcool the methane and oxygen. So like when you see them fueling up, the kettle boilers at the tank farm are just dumping out liquid nitrogen out of the back of them as they're vaporizing the from a liquid to a gas. And so there's like massive amounts of nitrogen being used. When they detank, I think the liquid oxygen just goes straight back to the tanks, and they don't have to reprocess it, but the methane has to go back through a heat exchanger before it goes back into the storage tank. So they're using the nitrogen both to cool before they load, and then also to cool the methane before they put it back into the storage tank. So there's a lot of liquid nitrogen loss. Most of the liquid oxygen loss comes from the chill down sequence. So like when they're, before they actually start loading fuel onto the booster, you'll see them venting out of the launch mount, and also the same on the tower, and they do that for a fairly long time. So that is a good amount of loss on the liquid oxygen side, just cooling everything down. And then I think there's some loss when they detank as well on liquid oxygen, because the storage tanks are so tall, and they don't, as far as what I've seen, they don't pump it back to the storage tank. It's gravity. So like with the Starship being on top, all of that liquid oxygen makes it back into the tank, because it's way above the height of the storage tanks. But once you drain the booster enough, you reach a point where the storage tanks are matching the height, and all of a sudden you either have to use the pressure within the tank to push it back, or you just drain it. And I do see them draining liquid oxygen all the time, especially when they test the booster on the ground at the cryo station. Like about a third of the liquid oxygen tank in the booster gets wasted. They just dump it because there's nothing they can do to recover it. So yeah, there's a lot of, in the past, in the last wet dress rehearsal, they also had a lot of methane that they had to refill the tank farm with, which was odd. Way more than what we were expecting, because they didn't do a static fire or anything like that. So that was a bit concerning. But so far, they've only had, I think, 4 methane tankers show up. And then by this morning, I think, or midnight last night, it was like 53 liquid nitrogen, 25 liquid oxygen, 4 methane, or something like that.
Well,
but
here's a question related to that I don't really know. It's been something I've been wondering about, is when they're getting ready to fuel the Starship, they go through a long process of moving the commodities from the tanks through the pipes, through the pumps, all the way out to the orbital launch facility. You see the venting as that's happening, and they have to get all that ready before they can actually put it into the ship. And while they're doing that, you're losing by boil off through that process. But when they're detanking, do they go through a similar process where they start moving it back through the pipes, or since the pipes are now closer to ambient, it's causing more of the boil off?
Well, the liquid oxygen side, they fill and drain through the same thing, so that stays flooded the entire time, so that it's they don't lose as much, I think, when they detank on liquid oxygen. The methane side, though, it fills through one pipe, then it drains through another one on the opposite side of the launch mount. So that one is probably hot, but they're reprocessing the methane, so I don't think it's as big of a deal. But yeah, as far as the liquid oxygen goes, it just like comes straight back. So I don't think that necessarily adds additional loss on that side.
So if they try to launch and they end up scrubbing, we're looking at, regardless of how quick they do, there's going to be a period of time that they have to get new commodities in. So
Yeah.
what is your estimate on that?
Well, our minimum estimate is 3 days. Like it will, until they get their upgrades to their production site finished, it'll take 3 days at minimum to do recycle, which seems to be lining up right now. They initially said in the live stream that it would be 48 hours, but I was like, yeah, I don't think you're gonna have your tank farm filled in 48 hours.
Well, right now it looks like you're pretty much on, which is really great. Now the question then becomes, if this launch cadence increases a lot more, how are they going to be able to sustain that launch cadence with the current way of bringing trucks in and so forth? And you mentioned a little bit about their on-site facility, but what is that like?
So right now, part of the issue is that they have to bring in liquid nitrogen and liquid oxygen and methane. I think liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen may be coming from Brownsville possibly because you have like hospitals that need those gases too. So I think that they do probably produce those down here. But I don't. I think the methane comes from either Houston or Corpus Christi. So that's like what, a 12-hour round trip I think for those drivers. And so that is a pretty significant amount of delay, I would say, when they're filling up the tank farm, which I don't think they really have a solution planned for that right now. I think possibly their solution is to just increase the amount of storage tanks that they have for methane so that they can hold 2 to 3 launches worth of methane there. But liquid oxygen and nitrogen in the future should be much faster because they do have their air separation plant. And they've actually had that for about like 2 years now. But the thing is that the generators that power those also are either main supply or backup power for the actual production site. And so especially with the Star Factory coming online, you know, all of the additional welding robots that are in there, the new welding robots that they have in the high bay and mega bay, like they actually are increasing their power usage.
Right.
So they really can't currently use that power to run the air separation plant. But now they've been doing this for a while now. Last year they started running 3-phase power lines from Brownsville all the way up to the launch site to replace all the old power lines that were up there. And they ran those all the way to the Sanchez site and stopped. And then over the last year and a half, they laid hundreds of miles of electrical conduit down from Sanchez site inside the production site, all through the launch site. And about 3 weeks ago, they started actually running all of the power cables, at least in the Sanchez site. So they're starting at Sanchez and working their way across the whole facility. So that's going to take a while. But once they have all that stuff online, then all of a sudden, at least liquid nitrogen, liquid oxygen will come directly, like, you know, from 2 miles away instead of 50 or wherever it's coming from, you know. So that'll drastically speed up the amount of offloads that they're able to do in a single day. I can't remember what we said for how many the maximum they were able to do in a day. I think it was, I don't know. I'm not going to guess because Vix, who tracks this, is probably watching, and she's going to be like, no, it's not the number. She'll probably say it in the comments here in a second.
Yeah. Well, there's just the limit of how fast you can get the trucks to the site. It's how fast they can unload and then leave.
It takes
for
90
another
minutes
truck,
to unload.
Right?
Yeah. It's 90 minutes to unload, and then you know, half the time, especially depending on where they're coming from, like because it took you a few hours to get there, it took you an hour and a half to unload. Usually they have to clock out for 10 hours before they can start driving again. So like, the first wave is always fast because everybody's like fresh on hours, and then you'll see it die off quickly after that because everybody's like taking their breaks as they're required to. And so without having significantly more drivers, they're not able to speed that up, and you can't increase your drivers because you don't have continuous demand. So without having continuous demand, you're limited to a certain amount of drivers. That's how it works in oil and gas as well with delivering sand. Like
Should we take some questions
Sure.
from
Yeah,
the
sure.
audience? Do
Sure.
you mind if I switch you?
Sure. Go ahead, take that.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Did we ever figure out what happened with the spider?
Oh, no, the spider has disappeared.
It was just chilling behind her head for a while. It was a pretty big one.
Okay, so I did say this would be like an Ask Me Anything Q&A, and we have been chatting so much I haven't really been able. So if anyone has any questions for Zach,
Jake says
fire
on
them
my
off,
shoulder.
because there's so many old comments that it'll be hard to scroll through. Question for Zach. Do you think SpaceX will commence groundwork for orbital pad 2 between launch 1 and 2?
Well, there's signs that they may be in the works to do that. I mean, with the amount of expansion work that's going on right now, it seems like they're going to double the size of Starbase over the next year and a half. So the Star Factory is expanding. The Mega Bay, they're building another one of those. Honestly, I would not be surprised if there's a fourth one at some point because they need it, like badly. And with the amount of production capability they do not currently have the testing and launch capability to match what they're doing in production. So part of fixing at least the testing holdbacks that they had, which is like, if you're doing anything on the orbital launch pad, you can't really, well, I guess you can do testing at the same time on this orbital pad, like literally on the same day, but that is like a limitation by actually having to do a road closure in order to test on the suborbital pad. Or if you don't want to be testing your booster at the same time, you're still shutting down, you can't work on the booster while you're testing on the ship. So by having the new Massey site, they're able to do at least their cryo testing for the ships and all the structural testing out there to like relieve some of the traffic at testing traffic at the launch site. And I still think that's not enough. That's just like the beginning stages of what they're going to do, because if they want to not need, I mean, they're either going to need another launch tower or they're going to need another rocket garden, because the rocket garden's not big enough to keep up with the production rate that they're at right now. So yeah, something's going to have to give. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, they really, really, really wanted to be launching out of Florida. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if everything had went right, like if the second launch was out of Florida. Like that, I think they were on pace for that, but that definitely got derailed. And now, because of that, like, I think they have to make adjustments and reinvest in Starbase. Yeah. Like, 'cause it really felt like they were trying to leave here at one point, but now I think they have no choice but to reinvest in Starbase.
Okay, another question. How long do you think it'll take for the next attempt if they fire the engines and then abort?
Like if they just do a static fire, pretty much? Well, then you get into methane consumption, so you'll have more methane to replenish, I guess. And then I'm assuming in that event, if that happened, there would probably be an engine issue, which means they would like actually be swapping something out. So I don't know. I have a hard time considering this because it affects my life directly if it happens, you know, of like, I sure hope that doesn't happen because that means we're going to be here for like another week.
All of us, it affects all of us.
Exactly. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
But we like it here.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I also, you know, was almost kind of hoping that it would go down on the first day. I was going to stay for the whole week anyways, but, you know, I do have other content that I would like to finish, and I just can't do it down here.
It's just this uncertainty, right? It's like, okay, well, if it's not going to be 420, how far will it slip?
Exactly, yeah.
It'd be nice to get it over with.
The further it goes, the more likely that there's the possibility of like lawsuits becoming interruptions, you know, which for all we know could be a factor right now, but hopefully it's not. So yeah, I don't know. Let's hope tomorrow's the day.
Yeah, we are crossing our fingers. Let's see some of these questions.
And no more aborts.
How massive, this is so hard to. Okay, well, what about this from Gregory? What is the strategy for using the Florida facility versus Starbase?
Well, this is all my opinion, I guess, which everything is, but this is even more so like necessary to say that this is the opinion. But okay, so I think that like when they were trying to launch last year and they were going through the process of the PEA, like we were all just waiting for the PEA results to come out. I think at that same time they were making the decision like we're not going to be sitting here being victims of this situation. Like they're very like take things into their own hands. Let's
Adapt
do what
and
we can.
overcome.
Exactly. And so they started immediately doing what they were doing in Florida, increasing their amount of workforce down there as far as for labor, building the Star Factory crazy fast, and they had cranes just sitting there waiting to construct the Mega Bay. The tower's complete. The second launch mount is probably nearing completion. I think they probably rolled it back a little bit, but that's a whole other topic. But anyways, so
How far down the rabbit hole do we want to
yeah,
go?
but once they did that, like as they're building the tower, that's when NASA was like, "You guys know we're not going to let you launch here, right?" Like, and that was mind blowing to me. Like I always had a feeling that they wouldn't allow that because it just didn't really make sense. Like, I mean, it's impressive that it's on the same pad as Falcon 9 and it's cool, but I think that was a mistake. Like to even consider doing that. I personally don't understand how it reached that point before NASA said something, and it's almost. It looks bad on both of them, in my opinion. It looks bad on SpaceX for making it seem like they didn't give consideration to that, and it also makes NASA look bad 'cause it's like, what took you so long? Like, the tower is complete before you said something. And so if I was SpaceX, I would be very upset. Like, that was probably a major, major hit for them when they were like, got that notification. I mean, it was like announced on Twitter.
Do you feel
You know
a
what I mean?
similar thing with the PEA hang up here of like why, did this take so long when they're kind of in
That's
the final
different.
stages? Okay.
I mean, that's just like natural process that they had to go through and something that they also should have expected by being down here. They know that what the environmental groups want. Not all of it is necessarily possible to appease, you know what I mean? But like they know the kind of the steps they needed to take in order to get approval, right? But I think initially they were like, okay, this is going to take longer than we want, so we'll just do this in Florida. And then now they find out that they can't use Florida, and so they're like, well, all right, well, we got to beef up Starbase then. So I think that's how it went down, and that I consider it a major financial error. I'm pretty sure they agree. Like it hurt my heart when well, I take that back. It hurt a little bit at first because I was like, dang, that really sucks. Like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of jobs. I mean, that's $1 billion tower. The launch mount, I would love to know how much the launch mount costs. I think when they say that $1 billion number, it's the whole pad. It's not just the tower, but yeah, just and more than anything, the workforce. Like, because you hire all those people and then all of a sudden they don't have jobs anymore because of one announcement, you know what I mean? And you can't necessarily just expect all of those people to get up and, all right, well, we'll take you to Starbase until we need you back down to Florida. Like, people aren't going to uproot their whole family just to come to Starbase and then have to go back to Florida in a year or so. So yeah, that was super unfortunate. I'm pretty sure I know some folks who actually got laid off in that event because of that situation. So it's really sad that happened. But at the same time, had NASA not said that, then we would never have the access to that we have as far as like being able to get super close to the launch site. Like with it being something that you can just drive up to on the beach, like we would just not have that kind of opportunity if they truly abandoned Starbase like it seemed like they were considering at first.
Right.
Yeah, like I'm super glad for that, being able to like actually go out into the wetlands and just sit there and
People don't realize it until they actually come here. A lot of people are shocked. They think that, we scheduled a tour or something. And it's like, no.
Yeah, and
self-guided.
On that note, I think like it's important to just mention that like if you guys are down here now or you come out later, like yes, it is mind-blowing like being able to get as close as you are able to, but like don't take that for granted and don't literally don't be a line stepper. Like there is
ruin it for everyone.
a physical line. We've actually watched people intentionally cross those lines because I guess they're not close enough already. But just keep that stuff in mind that as quickly as it can easily be like taken away. Like I'm always worried that our access will be reduced because of crazy folks.
Yeah. Sorry, there's so many questions and I'm having trouble keeping up with them all. James, thank you for the super chat. And he wants to know do you understand this question? Will a line use the tunneling machine to ensure that the fuel can get there faster, basically more of a direct route for the fuel drivers?
A tunnel for tankers? Probably not. No, I don't think so. That'd be kind of crazy though. And it doesn't really sound safe. Like imagine a tanker crashing within a tunnel. Like that's probably not good. There was an actual oil tanker that crashed 2 days ago on the highway and blew up all over the place. So I think that's the last thing that you want.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That was very intense.
Wild. But
Yeah.
I know ideally the best thing that they would do would be a pipeline, but good luck pulling that off because I don't think the environmentalists will ever allow that to happen.
Okay. Yeah, over 1,000 viewers. That's kind of nuts. That is the most that I've ever had on the live stream.
Wow.
So you're a popular guy.
Hey, well, thanks all of you for joining us.
Okay, here's some interesting questions. Should we ever expect a Vandenberg site and/or do you see SpaceX moving down to Mexico to expand operations? Any thoughts on either of those possibilities?
I don't see SpaceX going to Mexico for anything. I don't really.
I mean, Tesla.
I would see them in
that's a different
Australia.
story.
In Australia before they would be in Mexico. I think Australia would be super ideal. Well, number one, you need something with like an East Coast. Like you need an East Coast because they're not going to launch Starship over humans. Vandenberg could be possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they were building one at Vandenberg. We wouldn't know until they told us, or until it rose high enough in the air for people to see it. Like I don't think we would know that it was happening. They could easily be constructing something because I don't think we get satellite. I've never seen satellite images of Vandenberg, so unless somebody else has access to those, I really think they could truly surprise us with one there. But I don't know the logistics of actually.
Right.
You would need to then also build another starbase there. You can't just only have the tower. Yeah, I mean, I think that they'll have a lot more launch sites in the future. Like, allegedly, they have a bunch of them on order, like more than what we've seen. I mean, we know they have at least 3 so far, but I mean, I think there's several more of them sitting in storage somewhere right now. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of aerial surveillance, you recently went up with RGV aerial photography. How was that?
It was awesome. That was my second time going up with him. Our initial plan, and it's still the plan, is to fly out after the launch because we wanted to go out and find the booster in the water. So we'll fly out like 20 miles in order to get some shots of booster 7 in the water if they don't sink it first. Because that's, from what we heard, what's likely to happen. They're open up some valves and sink the booster, but hopefully we'll get there in time before that happens. But yeah, no, it's really awesome. You know, you really get appreciation for like how talented Mauricio is when he does what he does, because it's, you know, sitting there with his hands out of the window, like shooting shots with his huge camera. You know, I was in the backseat trying to do the same, and I'm like, my hands are too cold for this. Somebody gave me a jacket. Luckily, I had my arms inside of the jacket sleeves, like trying to warm my hands up and stuff. It's really, really cold once that window opens. But I mean, just being able to like be over Starbase and see it from that angle is pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I still have yet to do that one.
Well, I would offer you to come when we do it tomorrow, but we're going to be leaving immediately after the road opens.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, I don't want you to risk your life because it is risky to.
I was gonna say.
It's a single-engine plane,
not
so
a huge fan of
flying 20 miles
planes.
out in a single-engine plane is going to be risky. So I feel like we should probably live stream it so that SpaceX can find us if we have to ditch in the water or something like that.
Well, thank you, Lucas, for the super chat. He wants to know how much propellant is lost to venting in a wet dress rehearsal.
We don't know 100%, like just our estimations as far as like how much they refilled after the first one. I think it was 153 liquid nitrogen, 70 liquid oxygen, and 71 methane, which I think that was I don't think we should count the methane ones because that's a long story. We have no idea. We have no idea what's going on with the methane. We don't know why. But so far, it seems like whatever issue we thought there was with methane is gone because over the last few days, they've only brought 4 trucks in. So yeah, as far as like estimates on how much they use, that's about what we've come up with, which is quite a bit. I can't remember how much volume they store inside of those tankers, but yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of traffic on the road. Enough to create instant potholes as well too, because that happened yesterday.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
that's Lab Padre, right?
Yeah, destroyed his CV axle on his truck yesterday, just driving over a pothole. Like,
Potholes are no joke here. They're
yeah,
really bad.
I was dodging potholes like the Matrix yesterday. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. If you want to come look at some of these questions too, I want you to answer what you 3 cows worth of methane are.
A lot more than that.
Here, question for Zach. How's it been investigating the orbital launch mount so closely? What was your biggest, oh wow, did not expect that moment?
The Booster 7 explosion was an oh wow moment for me because I just like thought that was impossible. How much do I want to say about that?
Top secret,
It shouldn't.
classified.
I just thought it shouldn't have been possible, like physically impossible, safety-wise. I'm sure it's impossible now. Like there's just ways of making it so that like no matter what the computer tells it to do, it's just not going to do that. So I think that is it was interesting for it to happen though because it kind of gives an idea of like how their processes actually work. So I think that they always are like, and it's probably wrong to some degree, but always running the same program no matter what test they're doing. Mm-hmm. So like if you're always running your launch program, but you stop certain things early. So like when you do a spin prime test, you're still running the launch program, but you're disabling your igniters and you're disabling anything that's related to your engines actually starting up, right? So I feel like during that test that they had things enabled that they didn't intend to have enabled in specific the igniters. And when those went off, that caused a pretty large explosion. So that was shocking to me that was even possible to happen. But I don't know. I think it was good that it did because it kind of gave them like that moment, like this is pretty real. Like we got to be more careful, and it's always good for things like that to happen. But other than that, shocking moments. I don't know. I would say yesterday or on Monday, finding out that they still had all of the hoses connected to the engines, which I was like gonna bet money that would not be there. That was kind of shocking to me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a long list.
Well, those are good answers.
Yeah.
Let me just see. Wow, I can't believe how many people are watching. Yeah, nice interview. We are at the Rocket Ranch. This is kind of their, I guess, special events area.
Yeah, we were inside for a while because we were trying to get out of the wind, but it's nice to be out here.
It's crowded here. This is the most crowded I've ever seen it here. I don't know how many people are staying here.
Well, there was like 300 people here, I think, on Monday, and I think they're expecting that again tonight, possibly. So.
Feel bad for the people that had to leave. But then this new date has allowed some people to come who couldn't make Monday, so.
It giveth and taketh away.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, Damien wants to know, hey Zach, how did you develop the spirit of investigating the OLM, and how do you feel seeing its progress currently? So.
I give all the credit to Sam Patel because during the EDA tour, when he said the thing about the Raptor QDs, how those work, that was just like a explosion for me, literally, because I was like, wait, what? Because I was actually modeling the launch mount at that time, because I was like, when it first showed up, nobody believed it was what it ended up being. Like, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be something that was going to be on top of the high bay or something like that. And so, like, my initial goal was to like design it first. And so I knew everything that was inside of it. And so that's kind of what I did, was actually physically model the whole launch mount. And there was that one thing that I couldn't figure out, like what goes in this huge hole? And so like, I was watching that interview, and I was just hoping that they would answer that question. At first, they didn't even look at it. Like they didn't even. I think Tim like glanced down at the launch mount for like half a second, and
like,
went back to
"Wait."
Elon's face. I was like, no. And then luckily Sam like said what he said, and that like, if not for that, I don't know if I'd have a YouTube channel because.
Seriously.
That like truly like made it way more exciting for me. Like that little piece of technology that they're doing, I was like, wow, that's incredible. And nobody really caught it at the time. Like I think there was several months went by before anybody actually said anything about it. Like everybody in my Discord server, we were talking about it for months, and I was just waiting for somebody to like go and explain this, but it never happened. Like nobody ever talked about it. So that's why I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to make a YouTube video about it one day. And that's kind of where the idea initially originated from to start the channel, was because of that.
I feel like you really eat, breathe, and sleep this. When are you going to move to Texas?
I don't know. I live in Chicago right now. Oh man, that just reminds me. I got to call my roommate today and decide what we're doing as far as extending our lease.
Right.
So I'm supposed to move out in June, but I'm not ready to do that. Like I'm not ready to be moving anywhere right now. Like at least not in 2 months. Like that's just something that I'm not trying to do, because then you got to take the studio down, set it up somewhere else. So that's not my goal. We need a timeout.
Yeah, I need to open the container. I don't want to ruin your audio.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Fine.
We can't time out, but you guys are going to hear it. So.
Oh, wow, there's like quite the crowd. Should I show people what we see?
Not too bad, Dave. You guys know Dave Avery. He's loud all the time anyways, so we expect that.
I'm just going to show. This is what well, there's my crutch. And we have a little bit of an audience here, which is pretty cool. And this is kind of what it looks like in here. You have an awesome dead cat there. I forgot mine at home. Very cool.
Yours?
Yeah, basically. Okay, so let's get back on us. Okay, and looks like we have some more questions. What is your timeline? Because I feel like people would ask questions all day.
I mean, I'm not going to move to Brownsville, that's for sure.
No, I mean for the live
Oh,
stream.
okay. My timeline?
Yeah.
I don't have one.
Okay. So you're okay? You don't need to go to
I'm
the
good.
bathroom or get water? Okay.
We're
Okay. Yes, Zach is a legend. Oh, wow, it's beautiful there. It is really nice here. It's
Kind of. The weather's not the greatest today, but it's nice because it's like cooler.
It's
This isn't launch weather,
yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah, but at least it's not like blistering hot like it has been many times in the summer. Let's see. What about this? You want to read this question? You want to pick another one?
What differentiates Starship launch mount from other launch mounts?
What makes it so special and complicated?
That we actually know about it. Like that's one of the things. Like I mean, the truth is we can't really like. I would say that there's no other launch mount on the planet where they're actually using the actual structure itself to start the engines, but we don't really have access to any other launch structure like we do here. I mean, obviously we know SLS, Space Shuttle, fairly well, to know that that's not how those start up. I mean, SRB is pretty clear that it's not the launch mount that starts those up. And same with the RS-25s. But, you know, I would say that's one of the biggest things is like the fact that it's actually a part of the vehicle. So it's like, it's you know, calling it stage 0, it's literally a part of the vehicle. And that's one of those things that, you know, I posted a tweet a few months ago where I said, like, kind of just, I was thinking out loud, like, you know, the booster has to ask permission from the launch mount in order to release and to throttle up. And a lot of people are like, no, it should be the flight computer. But the launch mount is part of the booster. Like, that's what really sets it apart, is that it's like legit the first, I wish they didn't call it stage 0, but I get why they did that, because it should be stage 1. Like, it's literally part of the vehicle, essentially. So I think that is like an extra added amount of difficulty that like no other company is even like attempting. And it's, I mean, it's an engineering masterpiece, that's for sure. It's like, there's tons of issues with it. I think there's a lot of things that they could have done better, that they probably will still change after the first. We know for sure that they're going to change it after the first one, the first launch.
Oh,
but
there's the spider, sorry.
cool, at least we've located him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that fully answers the question, but to me, I would say the fact that it is involved with starting up the engines is probably the biggest thing. There's so much technology inside of there, it's ridiculous. Like, I really hope one day I can actually just see it on the inside.
I bet you will.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll sign the NDA for that.
Okay. Let's see. What other questions? Charles, thank you for the super chat. Ellie, you inspired me to visit Starbase and Rocket Ranch. Awesome. Let's see. Sorry, there's so many comments.
I know,
it's
they're
hard.
just like
yeah,
flying
it's
by.
hard. It's hard to keep up with them. What about that one? Or do you want to pick another?
The bottom one?
Pick whatever you want.
How do I feel about the success of my YouTube channel?
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm actually semi-surprised. I mean, surprised myself, first of all, because I don't really like being on camera, you know? Like, I've had a lot of people follow me on Instagram over the last few days, and they're gonna be disappointed because, like, I don't really post on Instagram. Like, I'm not, like, I don't know, I'm just never like being on
you.
camera. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, maybe I'll change in that way, but, you know, I'm surprised that I even did this because I don't like being on camera, so that's why initially I was, you know, writing for Marcus House because I didn't want to have a channel. But I mean, I guess I'm surprised with how fast it's taken off. I mean, we only have 17 episodes out right now, so to already be up at like 43,000 subscribers after that is pretty intense.
The detail and the work that you're putting into
it's
those episodes
stressful, but
really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for like, I was kind of glad that I got laid off at the beginning of March. First I was a little upset about it, but like, it's been really great because I'm like sleeping more now. Like, you know, I don't know if my boss thought I was working, but I was. So I would get off work every day and then, you know, start my channel, like, you know, doing, you know, my stuff immediately after that. So it's like literally just 16-hour days every single day, even on weekends. Like, it's like being back in the oil and gas industry, except never taking breaks.
Yeah.
So now having a little bit more free time to like actually chill and have a bit of a social life is a nice feeling. So like, you know, being able to, it's different though. Like once you do go full time, you like
I know.
start to care about things a little more. Like, I guess before I made that decision, I would just say whatever I want, whenever I want. Now I'm like,
it's a different mindset.
I have a little bit more of a
approach.
filter now, a little bit different approach. Like, there's still things that I need to like, you know, start doing. You know, like, I'm not the type to just. I can't do the Scott Manley stuff where you just like make a video in one day and then post it. Like, I wish I could do that. That's something I'm gonna potentially start working on. But you know, just with my style, like, it just isn't really conducive for putting out short content like that. So
How long does each episode take you roughly?
roughly, we calculated it's an estimation about 4 hours of script writing, research, editing per minute of footage. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just saying 4 hours.
No, 4 hours per minute. So
My
like the last episode was like 105 minutes. So multiply that by 4 hours. Yeah.
I've never
It's
done
wild.
that. That's
The one where we talked about the history of suborbital testing. Jax from the Ring Watchers helped me with that one. Well, he really wrote most of that. That took us 5 months, and I was still doing other episodes at the same time. So I'm like constantly overlapping.
It's hard to balance.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard when you're working on more than one at a time because you're a little scattered.
Well, before I even started my channel, I had 15 videos planned. So like
Wow.
I have only done like maybe 3 of those. I haven't even made it to the other 12 that I originally had planned. So I'm like even now working on I think like 4 or 5 episodes at the same time. So like it's kind of weird developing them. Sometimes I don't start writing them until I'm ready to actually start recording as well too. So like most of them are in my head. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know what I need for them. Like start working on them ahead of time. Ryan Hansen Space has been working on some animations for me for the last few weeks. So like we already have tons of things planned. But yeah, the time is a lot. Like it's a huge time commitment, which at some point I hope that I'll be able to reduce somehow.
Yeah.
There will be like times where it becomes necessary to like recover things that I've already covered, which will be the easy ones. You know, less time goes into those, but there's also going to be lots of development that happens over the next few years, with all the different variants of Starship that there will be. Like, I'm sure there'll be tons of stuff to cover. So, I don't know. It's probably, the time commitment's probably never going to go away.
Well, I feel like it's really good that you're able to do it full time now, because I
Yeah.
can relate to when I was working in news. I'd get off of work and then work on my videos, and
Right.
it was a little bit like there was less pressure then, because now being full time, there's more pressure for, okay, I need to hopefully this video generates ad revenue,
Yeah.
and but it's
It's super stressful.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I mean, the amount of time that I put in, and then on some of them to only get, my last one I think is 80,000 views, and I was like, this is some really important stuff in this one. But it's okay to me, because the fact that anybody's watching it at all makes me happy, and then being able to talk to people in person, and
Yeah.
I can tell that they're actually learning stuff, and
Right.
being able to contribute to how people watch the testing events and the launches, and their understanding while they're viewing that is worth it. And it's not necessarily about view count for me. It's more about just in general being able to educate people about what's happening. And I also like helping people appreciate what the SpaceX employees have done over the last
Right.
3-4 years, because a lot of times, and rightfully so, people will credit Elon with everything, and I don't think that's even what he wants. And even when his team makes mistakes, they still will put it on Elon, but that's the team's mistake, not Elon. So both success and failure, both on the team, and I kind of want people to more understand the amount of coordination and work and all that stuff that goes into it, whether it's good or bad. And that's one of the lines that I constantly have to walk, is being willing to talk about the bad stuff, which is even more stressful, because especially if you're wrong about it, you know what I
Right.
mean? You're okay, well, this is gonna be tough to cover because I don't even know if I'm right,
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that's good. Okay. Gosh, we're getting a lot of questions about OLM. Well, do you have any thoughts about why it's so tall?
It should be taller.
Okay.
The launch mount, I mean, it's crazy when you see it in person. You're like, Jesus, that thing is
Yeah.
extremely tall. It's 30 meters off the ground, so that's pretty, I don't know, maybe 25, I think. But I'm sure a lot of people, when they hear that question, are like, why isn't there a flame trench? I don't know. I think the bigger solution would be to make it slightly taller, but it's really good that it's that height. I think most of it really comes down to simulation, where they just do simulation and they're like, this will work.
Mm-hmm.
And then in real life, it may tell them something different, but I think that they're pretty confident in how it is right now. The fact that they built the same one almost identical,
Yeah.
I don't think they're worried about any of the stuff that everybody else is worried about. Except the water deluge. I think they finally caved on that one, but yeah, I think all the other stuff, they're definitely not as concerned about as most of us are.
Okay, what about, would you do a skit with Elon on the channel if you could?
I don't know how that would go, but yeah, I mean, I would. I don't know if Elon, I can't imagine him doing that.
I mean, he was on SNL, so.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be awesome. I would also, even more than Elon, really like to talk to the team, especially the booster team, stage 0 team. That's kind of more my thing. I'm not really a
Fanboy.
yeah, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would definitely love to talk to him, but I also, because I follow it so closely, I'm more concerned with what the team's doing. You know what I mean?
So who would you want to talk to the most?
Sam,
Yeah.
he's gone. He went to Florida, I guess. Yeah, that would have been the ideal guy to talk to, because he's always super excited to talk about stuff. So
He's really
that would have
nice.
been, yeah, that would have been really fun. I actually saw him last time I was down here. I was with Tim, and we were across the street from the restaurant, and there was a drone flying up in the air, and I was looking at the drone, and then I turned, looked at the restaurant, and Sam was just sitting there staring at me, and I was like, hey, and then I just got back in the car. I was like, Tim, are we even supposed to be here? I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, he's gonna kick us out. But I really wanted to run up and talk to him, but I didn't. I'm not. not that kind of person. So
I saw him on my first trip down to Starbase, and he gave me one of the keychains. And
really, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Maybe
so
I should have said hi.
driving around in his Tesla. He's very nice.
Yeah, I missed that opportunity. It's all good.
It's all right. I'm sure that you'll find a way to talk to him someday.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll run into him somewhere.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so Java Man, thank you for the super chat. And he says, this is the first I heard about problems at Kennedy Space Center. Can you elaborate for those uninformed?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit ago, but the biggest thing is just, logistically speaking, it's just a financial tragedy almost, because you have a very, very large manufacturing facility. Hopefully they didn't already purchase all the bridge cranes that are in there, because there's like, 20-something bridge cranes that are probably inside of that building, which aren't cheap. Hopefully they didn't outfit it with all the welding robots, because that's not cheap, because you can't even start producing ring sections there because you don't have a mega bay to stack them in, and you can't launch yet. So like all of that work, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if they spent $2 billion for something that they can't use for, at minimum, very minimum right now, they're looking at about a year. So like the Star Factory itself, at very minimum, will be empty for a year. If they started building the Mega Bay tomorrow, then they'll be able to use the Star Factory a year from now. They'll probably start actually cranking ring sections out before they even finish it, but like it's a massive, massive allocation of capital that is like now just sitting there not being used. I'm pretty sure they're extremely unhappy about that.
Yeah.
It stresses me out even thinking about it, because that's like one of my jobs. My last job was doing supply chain management. So when I saw what they were doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good. This is not good.
Have you seen it down there in person yet in Florida?
I haven't been to Florida since.
I've seen phases of it, but.
I don't think I've been to Florida since Falcon Heavy.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't travel a whole lot right now, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came down for this.
I know, I wasn't gonna miss this for anything.
Yeah. and you drove, right?
I did.
You're
I did.
Flexible on the
My
schedule. Hopefully.
vehicle was not happy about the drive. I had to do a lot of maintenance to get it going. I put a vinyl wrap on my car during COVID. I learned how to vinyl wrap on YouTube during COVID. And I
Really?
wrapped the whole thing. And the size of the bugs in Texas are big enough to actually chip it. So I have tons of chips in my wrap now. Like it's
Terrible.
It's terrible. Like it did. I've got a lot of cosmetic damage on my vehicle just from being down here, and then I'm sure my suspension isn't happy that I'm like driving so aggressive on Highway 4, dodging potholes. Because, I don't know. It's worth it though, because at the same time, especially staying here, you need to rent a car or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper to just drive, and driving is part of the adventure.
Yeah.
It's like.
How long was your drive?
22 hours. It's a lot of time to think on the way.
Jeez,
Yeah. It was a fun drive though. I did it pretty quick, and the way back, I'm hoping we'll have seen launch, because if not, probably 22 hours of crying. I'll have to pull over to like re-up on water to fuel the tears.
Well, I guess there was a comment earlier of like, how long are we willing to stay? And I think right now I'm willing to stay through Monday.
I don't have a job right now, so like I'm not
This is
really
your job. You do have a
I'm
job.
not like limited on how long I can stay, but like I don't know. It hurts me not being able to like finish these videos that I'm working on too. So like ideally, I would like for it to happen tomorrow so that I can be back next week and keep working on some of the things that I have planned, because there's a lot of stuff that should have came out before this launch that I really wanted to do, but it's okay.
Is it too soon, or can we talk about some of your overall vision, your long-term vision with what you want to accomplish, and kind of how, do you know what I'm talking about, what you were telling me? You can just say yes or no.
Yeah, that's fine. My goal has always been to like do a lot more like cross work with other people and cross collaboration. I was really shocked last time I came down here. Tim offered to offered himself up to be kidnapped and with a bag over his head and whatnot, tied up. Marcus is always down to help. It's
Team space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's my goal, is to like really bring that together, because I don't know, sometimes it seems like it's just a hashtag, but I try and make it real. So like my goal has always been from the very beginning to like, started working in the lab, RGB, Starship Gazer, really just trying to do everything at the same time, because I feel like at some point, if SpaceX is launching as often as they say they are,
Yeah.
it could become necessary to have like a 24/7 news network. And we're not going to let CNN or Fox News sit there and lie to us for hours about what SpaceX is doing, so we might as well do it ourselves. And so that's like one of my goals at some point, is to have like a 24/7 space news
Space
network,
News Network. Are
with
you
just like
looking-
all of the like content creators.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to pull off.
Are you looking for a breaking news reporter? I think
We definitely need everything. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I would love to see, Marcus come on for an hour, then Felix come on right after that and say what they disagree on. You're like, yeah, I didn't like what he said there, and there'd be differing opinions on everything, different styles. It's difficult to pull off though, because
Yeah.
you have to brand it, and then once you throw a name on something, that causes issues. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be difficult to pull that one off, but that's my like overall end goal. Just finding ways of working with people more, because I feel like that's what a lot of the fans want, is to like see all their
Yeah.
favorite content creators in the same
It
place.
is fun to collaborate
Yeah.
and meet everyone that's been down here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty wild. There's so many photographers. A few of the 3D artists are down here. Like people from the press that we only usually see on Twitter and stuff
Yeah.
like that down here as well too. So yeah, pretty like surreal, honestly.
Go, go, go.
And it's just the first time, so it'll be when they catch the booster, that's going to be another experience, I think.
Yeah.
When it'll probably be like
Yeah.
700 people here when they do that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But we're just at the beginning, and it's an exciting beginning. I feel like
Yeah.
I can't leave until they pull it off.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, I may have to start doing live streams if I need to fund this or something.
Yeah. They're fun. It's really nice to be able
Yeah.
to like interact.
It is, for sure.
And see your guys' comments. Thank you guys so much. Let's see. Blind Boy, thank you for the super chat. He says, sign me up. I've been looking for a job covering Starship for a while. It's really cool that we're able to do this.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's. Wait, did you get your press? You said you got your press credentials the other day?
I did get press credentials for for tomorrow's attempt. However, I also got an opportunity to watch it from a rooftop, and I think I'm going to go with that one. So it's pretty exciting.
Less crowds is nice, because
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to film at all. Like
Yes.
that's the ideal place to not be like in the middle of a huge. Sorry, thought that was the spider there. Not be in the middle of a huge crowd when you're trying to like film stuff. I'm honestly not really sure what I'm doing for the launch, but I didn't even apply for the media credentials because I wasn't willing to put my camera on that landing pad. Like,
You could have just checked the only launch viewing.
yeah, I don't know. I was really busy. Like
Yeah.
when everybody was filling out all the press credential stuff. I mean, it's probably just a single email. I was just so busy trying to get episodes done before coming out here that I was like, oh, I'm not really worried about it.
There
I'll
will
just
be a
watch it with
next
the crowd.
time.
Yeah,
There will be a next time.
yeah, for sure. I'm not too butthurt about it. It's fine.
But watching it from the park is definitely the most popular option, but it is the most populated option, and signal there is
Yeah.
non-existent unless you have Starlink. And
I kind of like watching it from inside the danger zone because that's where we are. Yeah, I think we're like, from where
You
we're
guys
going to be
are the
watching, we're
closest.
inside the exclusion zone. So,
Yeah.
and on that note, I kind of wish that SpaceX put out some kind of notifications because they know that we're all there, and like there hasn't really been too many like advisories on like what to do in certain events, and like in particular an airburst of the vehicle. Like I don't think they've properly addressed like what can happen if that goes down. Like I'm a little worried about that as far as, just not having notifications on what the proper thing to do is.
Also, thank you, Mark, for the very generous super chat there. Let's see. So many comments. You
Yeah,
wanna
fine,
try
sure,
to-
yeah.
It's hard to keep up with them.
Will we be moving to Brownsville? I cannot move to Brownsville.
I'm not moving to Brownsville.
I
live
may
in Austin.
move to Austin, yeah.
Yes,
that
you
sounds
should
like
move
an
to
ideal
Austin.
spot.
Austin has great food. There's always something going on.
Yeah, I lived there before.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah.
Come back.
I will. It may happen at the beginning of next year. Oh.
You just see Booster.
Is Highway 4 open the rest of the day? I believe so. I'm actually about to go to the launch site
Yeah,
after this.
we are planning on going to Starbase. We're gonna go there too because I haven't been in like the wetlands part yet.
Really?
No,
Oh, we should definitely do
I
that.
didn't know that you could get that close. So
Are you going to be able to do it with your...
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
It's crazy because just my mobility from coming here April 9th on Easter to now is like, I can walk without the crutches
well,
now.
maybe we should do part 2 of the live stream on the wetlands.
Okay.
Do you have your Starlink?
How about that?
Let's do it.
I don't have Starlink, but I usually get pretty decent service depending
Really?
on where we are. Yeah, the live streams I've done down there, I haven't used
Wow.
anything other than AT&T.
I haven't even been able to send text messages. People are all mad at me that
What do
I'm
you
not...
have?
I have Verizon, but
Okay, maybe that's why I have AT&T.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see you a little later. Thank you everyone for watching and hope that you enjoyed it. And we're gonna go charge my phone so we can do a little bit more later. And
Thanks,
show
everyone.
you something that, oh wow, we have